because we need to hear this. We'd love to have it recorded. If you'll share it with us.
Well, when I first went into service.
Yeah, let's hear whatever you tell us.
Well, I went into the Navy and I put a hitch in the Navy. And then I called this friend of mine that I knew who was down in the headquarters for assignment because I was coming up for an assignment. And he says, well, I was an aviation machinist mate then. And he said, well, your next tour of duty is going to be sea duty on an aircraft carrier. I said, hell with that. I'm married and my wife's expecting in that. So I took my discharge and I got out and I went to the Air Force. And at that time you could go rank for rank. So then I went into the Air Force at Mitchell Air Force Base in Long Island, New York. And I worked on B-26s. And we used to fly those all over the country and everything. And then I transferred and I went to Pope, North Carolina. And we had the 123s, which was at that time, and next door, in the next office, was the beginning of spray flight. They sprayed the Agent Orange. And it was the same airplanes, the 123s. So I took a couple of those airplanes over to Southeast Asia and come back, and of course, one thing led to the other, and next thing you know, which the military does, it keeps a record of what you've done and what kind of airplanes. Yes, ma'am. So consequently, I went to, what was it, the spray planes and that. I went to Turkey. And I put a hitch over there and brought my family to Turkey and spent, I think, 2 years over there. And when I come back, I went to California and was out there with the Presidio, the commander of the Presidio, flying him around. And we had a squadron commander, and I think he was a little bit touched in the head. I mean, he'd walk through the hangar, and he'd say, "I don't want nobody to create hazards here." And he would walk through, and he'd have steel cleats on his shoes. And that's something you don't do. Walks around with aviation shoes. So consequently, General Disaway, which I knew I flew for him in Europe, he come in, and Colonel Abatassi was his pilot at the time, and he knew me, and so he talked to General Disaway, and so when Disaway was ready to leave from Hamilton Air Force Base, the flight steward come down and he says, "Hey, come on up in the airplane, the general wants to talk to you." And he asked me what was going on in the outfit, which I told him. And so he says, "Okay," he says, "I've got enough, thank you very much." And he left, and he says, "You'll hear from me." And this Colonel Kelly, and I can remember these guys, Colonel Kelly was in TAC headquarters, and he come in, and he turned around, and the operations officer, the commanding officer of the outfit, he sent them, give them orders, go to Tule, Greenland. They put almost their whole career in California. They were homesteaders. So they sent them to Tule, Greenland, and I got a set of orders going back to Langley for the general and I flew over there for a while until I got a set of orders to go back to Vietnam. And that's when we started developing Puff the Magic Dragon. And in fact, that major who was doing it, I run into him over in Tampa, Florida. And he's retired also. And his son. But anyway, he was in charge in TAC headquarters of putting the gunships together. I'm trying to think now, 2.75 millimeter Gatling guns. And then last time I seen him over in that area was when he come out with the cannon that they put on there. It's a 155, I believe, cannon. And they put that on the back of a C-130. And then, in the meantime, Air America come around. And they were looking for people to come with them. So I flew with them, and we flew in places you would never believe. You would never believe even a runway existed. And one experience we had, we landed at one field over there in Nam, and I had the surveying contractors put what we call PC, I can't think of it now, PFC, something PCS. It was the runway, steel runway they laid down, see, for the airplanes to land on. But they put it in upside down. So, in other words, when they punched the hole in the metal, that sharp edge is standing up.
Like a cheese grater.
So, the first couple of airplanes that landed there, they shredded the tires on the airplanes. So, and this is where we got in with Air America and all that, and so forth. And then we went to many, many places that you would not even believe of. In fact, I run into a guy the other day. Well, he's out at the restaurant out here in Vieira, the Mexican restaurant there.
Yeah.
Melancitos?
Huh?
Melancitos?
Yeah, I guess it is. I'm not sure. But he was stationed over in Turkey when I used to go into these different bases over there.
Really?
And he said, it's all classified. I couldn't tell you about it. I said, well, I remember flying in there with an airplane filled with fire extinguishers. See? And we would land, there wouldn't be a building around, there wouldn't be no trees, just weeds. See? And we would have to offload the airplane and then take off. A couple hours later, we would go back to Anchorage and pick up produce. When we come back to that field on the Russian and Turkish border, there wasn't a fire extinguisher around. They all disappeared. And that was 50 to 60 fire extinguishers, the big ones.
Wow.
See, well, what it is, they go up into the hills, and they had a couple of 3 bases up there. And he was at them bases. And
Wow.
he's very, very nice young man. Don't get me wrong, he's black, and I'm not prejudiced, but he was a very, very polite individual out there at the restaurant.
He's a patriot,
You see,
an American.
and so consequently, that's the story on Turkey and that. And then when we went and we did with Air America and the spray flight, and then we run short of flight engineers for the spray planes. So they pulled me, like I told you before, the Air Force has a way of digging into your records. And they seen that I was qualified on the airplane. So I went over to Puff the Magic Dragon, and we developed that, and we were there's an island off the coast of Vietnam. They had an article in the American Legion magazine 6 or 8 months ago. And these guys were stationed over there. And they used to extend their tours because it was so good and so wonderful, the duty that they had. And they would work on our airplanes, see. And we flew all over the country, and there's many bases I can't even pronounce. And so consequently, I was up in, I think it was in Pleiku,
Yeah.
see, and we took off out of Pleiku because everybody wanted to play cool, because the cook up there, he made blueberry pancakes, and the word got out all over Vietnam. So there was a whole bunch of airplanes in there, see, and everybody go for midnight chow, blueberry pancakes. So when I come back, we were flying back from Trang, which was our headquarters at the time. The DC fired out and shot one of my engines out on the airplane. So here we lived back into the Trang, and this to me is one of the highlights of my career. We were coming in and they says, you declare an emergency, and we said, yeah, we have to. You know, we only got one engine on this Goonie Bird. So they says, okay, help is on its way for you, to help you. And well, I looked out the side window of the airplane, and here is, and I can't think of the name of it now, it's a twin rotor blade helicopter, and he's painted with the U.S. flag on the side of it. And I'll tell you that I've stuck with that memory all my life.
Yeah.
That he come up there and he helped us as we guided right on in to the airfield.
See our flag right there when you needed it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's nice.
and so forth. So it was a wonderful experience this way. And then I had experience flying to these different places, like Pleiku and a couple of these others, and we would bring bags of rice down to these hamlets, and we picked up a load of preachers, fathers, and they wanted to ride back to the Trang with us, and I had this other black fella, he was the load master on the airplane. And when we loaded these guys and they wanted to come back, so they said, the pilot said, yeah, come on. And they got on board the airplane, and I think the guy's name was Lewis, this load master mine. He stood by the back door of the airplane where the bathroom was, and he had a loaded M16. So he says, if we have any problems, regardless of preachers or not, we're gonna wipe them out.
Wow.
And he stood back there. Well, we got back in the Trang, and all the preachers got off the airplane, and they were all talking. And I think I have a picture of this. I'd have to dig it out.
Yeah.
This one guy, he was off the airplane. He was a preacher. This load master of mine, he got, and he seen a cigarette lighter on the chair in the airplane. He took the cigarette lighter and he went out of the airplane and he went down. He said, whose is this cigarette lighter? And this guy that was sitting in the chair, he took off running, the preacher. Well, they checked out and come to find out, if he would have opened that up and struck it, it would have blew up. It was a booby trap. So
Wow.
consequently, they got him.
So he was a communist operative.
Yeah, VC.
Wow.
And so this is one of the stories that we come into. I was up in Da Nang, and we were going into Da Nang because they were really pounding the shit out of the Marines up there. And consequently, we got called in to come in and pick up some of the wounded Marines. So we flew in, and the pilot and the co-pilot, because I was a flight engineer, the pilot and co-pilot, they went into base ops. And we stood out there at the airplane while they were gonna load the stretchers with the wounded Marines on. Well, we started hitting the base with noise, the BC. So I said, hey, I ain't gonna stick around here. And them two clowns was in the base ops. So I went in and I had clearance to fly, to taxi, and run those airplanes. And consequently, we got on board the airplane. And then we turned around and looked, and here is two litters of Marines laying there wounded. And the Marines were carrying them in. They took off because some water's coming into us. So we run out, we grabbed the two litters, pulled them on board the airplane, and I started up the engines on the airplane, and I was gonna take off. When they finally, the pilot and co-pilot, come running out of base ops, got in the airplane, and I started down the runway to do it. And they got us on board the airplane, and we were flying. And the pilot come up and he says, you know, I'm gonna court-martial you for stealing an airplane. And as I wish you would, be my guest. Well, this loadmaster we had, he was scared shitless that he was gonna be put in jail or Leavenworth for stealing the airplane too. But it come to find out, we got back and there was a lot of commotion about it. And that's where I wound up getting the Silver Star.
For you.
They awarded the pilot and the co-pilot, or me and the loadmaster, Silver Star.
So there were wounded Marines laying out in the open.
They left them
the
on the
tarmac.
ramp, yeah, the tarmac thing.
Wow.
And so we went out and got those two. The other ones were back in the hangar still. See, they were waiting to be pulled out. But it was a shame.
Yeah. Yeah,
Then
that's.
we went to, which is on the tape over there in the museum, if they have it. Of course, the media and the Army, they want to up their, how would you say, prestige. And they don't want to say the Air Force did this, or, you know. And we got called out just about 4 or 5 o'clock at night. And this was in Benoit. And the VC were overrunning and with waves of the VC. They're trying to get to that Special Forces camp. Well, if you ever see the VC, you'll understand. But, I mean the movie, but they went ahead and they dug a big hole, and all the Army guys went into the hole and then sealed up the hole. See? And so on like that, of course, the one guy had a radio so he could talk to the airplanes. But being on Puff the Magic Dragon, and he was screaming, help, help, help. Well, we come over and we raked the whole jungle and the whole top of the camp where they were banging on the tunnel trying to get in and so on. And I don't know if you've ever seen it where a storm or a hurricane is, and a hurricane comes in and you see a whole bunch of trees laying on the ground.
Yep.
That's the way the VC were after we got done with the Magic Dragon. And,
That's good. That's a nice ending right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hundreds and
Stacked
hundreds of
them up good.
And so the next day, about 8 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, the reinforcements showed up, and whatever was left of the VC, they hauled tail. And we were flying around, and the captain calls the airplane, and he says, I want to talk to you guys, and I want to thank you very much. You saved all our lives. See, and so on. And the co-pilot, he says, well, that's all right, we were doing our job. And so on like that. And I said, wait a minute, I'll tell you what I want. I want the American flag from that Special Forces camp. And he says, we'll see what we can do for you. And that's the flag that's in the museum down over here on the Island.
That's awesome.
He come in to the office and he was looking for me and he gave me the flag there. And I took it and sent it home to my dad. My dad flew it in his home until he passed on.
Wow.
And then when I come back, I got the flag and I carried it for years. And then I was waiting to get that incident that was on TV to marry up with the flag because they're all the same incident. And that's the story of that. And it's out there. If you ever get an opportunity, and if they have it hanging up or the video, be my guest.
So there's a documentary out about this action that you were in?
They made the Tour of Duties was the name of the show, and they had that incident on it. See, and so on. But like I say, they played the Army coming in there and rescuing the Special Forces guy, but they never said nothing about the Air Force. And it was comical. And with the CIA, we used to go into all over. We were into Thailand, we were into Cambodia, we went into Cambodia quite often, and of course Nam, and so forth. And it was amazing some of the stuff that we did and carried that people wouldn't even believe of. No.
They just considered you a civilian airline,
Yeah,
right?
right. In fact, a lot of the pilots that was with Air America were ex-Air Force officers, pilots, and they seen the money with Air America because they were paying such a fortune
Yeah.
that they jumped and took their discharge and went over to Air America. And I knew quite a few of them, you know.
Wow. Mandarin Express.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to do a lot of that stuff. It's all history and behind us now,
Yeah, it is, but it needs to be remembered.
We were down, I can't think of the name of the town. It was right on the river where they had on one side of the river was like a special forces camp. And consequently, we got a call one night, and here the Viet Cong was on the other side of the river, and they were coming across the bridge and so on like that after the American Special Forces. And so they called us down there. Well, we come on down, and we seen what was going on. So we went down and we went right on top of the water with the airplane, parallel to the shoreline. And we raked the whole shoreline with the miniguns from the airplane. And so like that, we wiped out these guys and they left them alone then. So it's some crazy stuff. It's just like we got called down to Benoit,
Yeah.
which is down by Saigon.
Right.
And a bunch of these VCs was in like in a hotel. And the special forces was trying to get them out, but they couldn't get into them. See? So they called us down. We went in there, and this is my first encounter with surprise package was the name of the C-130. But anyway, we went in with Puff the Magic Dragon, and we raked that building and so on, and the Army went to go back in, be receiving a lot of fire again. So we tried it again, and we couldn't wipe them out. So we get a phone call and says, hey, you guys, let us go in there and we'll do it. We're Big Spooky. See? Oh, who the hell is Big Spooky? This is the first encounter we ever had with it. And I says, we'll take care of it. Well, they went and they flew in and we flew off, we fly what we call a racetrack pattern. So they went in with the C-130 and they went in with those, like 50 calibers. I'm not sure what they were now. They went and they leveled the whole building. They leveled it. And they says, we hope you're happy and everything like that. But it was amazing to watch it. So it's really something. Then of course I come back to the States and I went back to TAC headquarters in Langley, Virginia. And I picked up my old job flying for General Mummeyer at the time, and so on like that. We flew around the country. But that's about the whole career that I've had, and so on.
You were there before it was publicly announced that the United
Right.
States was involved in that.
1959.
It's quite fantastic.
We were over there, that's when we were down on that island where they had a bunch of mechanics, Navy mechanics and Air Force mechanics. And we got shot up or banged up. We'd limp over to that island and they would patch the airplanes up for us down there. And that was back in 1959. And they had a big article in the American Legion magazine about the unforgotten support troops that were down there doing that. But the guys kept extending because it was such easy and they were treated so good there that they just wanted to stay over there.
It was easy until you got assigned some kind of suicide job, and they lost a fair amount of those men, didn't they?
No, not too much of the guys on the island, but we lost, mortar attacks and stuff like that. And, you don't realize, and I brought back, we built in the Triangle, a building, and the flares that we used to drop on the jungles and that to light them up at night, they come with a styrofoam box about that big in halves and the flare was inside it. Well, we took all those boxes and we built a building and we insulated the building with these flare boxes. They were styrofoam, see, and everything. And one night we was all sitting at a table and in the lounge, and they told us to get the heck out of there because Charlie was up on the mountain and lofting mortar shells at us. And we did, we hauled tail, and in the course of this, across the way, the street in front of the facility was the PSP matting, which is the steel matting I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The mortar shell hit that, and it ricocheted into the alert facility. And it went through these 1.5 to 2-inch mahogany doors that we had there.
Wow.
And one guy was sitting there, and when that happened, right after that, he rolled out of the chair, and when he did, a piece of the shrapnel from one of the mortar shells went right up where he was sitting. Right, it would have killed him instantly because of that, you know. But we had quite a bit of that. If you didn't pay attention, it's just like today. They tell these people, wear the mask.
Yep.
They don't listen, and consequently, they wind up getting killed. Or now they're in the hospital
Yep.
because of it.
Yep.
Um, It's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. But we'll get past it all.
Yeah.
By the grace of God.
I've only run in, I got a friend of mine now, they're coming up. I've been with him for 20 years, 25 years, maybe longer. He was with the C-119s, which is the big, the airplane in Nam. And they had, they called a Shadow. And they were gunships also, but they had improved electronic stuff, which you couldn't get on a C-47. And he flew that. Now they're having a big reunion in Destin, Florida, out there. And he asked me, he's been after me for years, but he wanted me to come because I was one of the first of when they formed the Aero Commanders. They pulled this out of Hope, North Carolina, General Box, I remember. And they pulled 3 or 4 of us and a couple from Seymour Johnson